Welcome everyone to another episode of Hector and Mike Experience, Common Sense in an Uncommon World. And Mike, what a crazy week and a half it's been. We've gone from the assassination attempt to Joe Biden being adamant that he's going to be continuing to run in this particular race. I mean, you had everyone out there saying, no, he's in it to win it. You had a lot of workings behind the scenes going on the Democratic side to try to get him out of running. And then you've got the Republican convention. Donald Trump ends up picking up his vice president. A lot of great speakers that they had, and kind of we'll go into it a little bit. You know, and this is coming in from a lot of commentators because a lot of the folks that were featured were regular people, just individuals who had a story to tell at the Republican National Convention, which is usually filled with politicians giving kind of giving their stump speeches. And then you've had, what just makes it even crazier is the president deciding he's going to step down. And initially we had heard that if he stepped down, he wasn't going to endorse anyone. But then he comes out right out of the bat and ends up endorsing Kamala Harris. So Kamala is now been kind of anointed, or she said, "Oh, I want this to be I want to earn it. I don't want to just be given this thing." But I mean, she's done a good job of just kind of having everyone coalesce around her. And it seems it's going to be a coronation. And so, but the thing is that she's not yet the nominee because we still haven't had the Democratic National Convention that's occurred. And now there's question as to whether or not, with Joe Biden dropping out, whether all that money that he has that was raised under Biden for president can be transferred over to a Harris for president. So, Mike, help us unwind some of this stuff.
Well, this is the Hector and Mike Experience, the Armageddon edition, which means I'm getting the hell out of here. That's what it means. Yeah, it's been a crazy 2 weeks, and it's in the middle of July. So, that just tells you what's about to come in the next 3 months. It's all a fascinating thing, and there are so many different pieces to this. There is the whole backstory of how Joe Biden went from being adamant to not leaving to leaving. And I think one of the things people ask is what was negotiated in that process for the Bidens. I think another part of this obviously is Kamala ascends, and the ability to, and they claim it's her ability, but the ability to coalesce a pretty divided Democrat Party that was headed for a train wreck in Chicago in August, which is, it's not an inconsiderable thing to do. You have a Republican convention that I think for the most part went really, really well and was really well performed and did great on messaging. And so now we go into the situation where process becomes a big talking thing. The process the Democrats have to go through to get from a coronation of Joe Biden to a coronation of Kamala Harris. You see some of the high profile people now coalescing behind her. And the American people, if they're paying attention, which maybe they're not because they're going to the beach or enjoying summer, but if they're paying attention, should be asking themselves, have we just been gaslighted for the last 2 years by this administration, by this vice president, about the status and the condition of our president? And, everybody has seen Joe Biden over the last 2 years, and the decline in his health and the decline in his frailty and his mental acuity. And it's been no big open secret, but the press, and we talked about this in our last episode, the problem Joe Biden had was he could get the Democrats back in the box after the debate. He couldn't get the press back into the box after the debate. They were beating him every single day. They were watching every little misstep, none of which were new, by the way. They've been happening the last 2 years. They just decided to start covering it because they felt they were duped. And so now, for the next month, it's going to all be about Kamala will have a bump. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The whole narrative of, the first black president, first black woman president, and all of that stuff. But the bottom line, and Republicans have to keep very focused on, eye on the ball, is that her record is the issues here. Is she someone that you can trust? Is she someone who is competent? Is she someone, based on what she did as a district attorney in San Francisco, as the attorney general of California, as a United States senator, and over the last 3 years as vice president, someone you think is capable of representing your values and your views and your policies and being able to implement them and get something done? And that's what they have to focus on. They cannot get distracted with, the silliness of some of the things she says, or the goofs that she makes, or, even the fact that, I've heard some of them, talking about, well, she's only where she is because she's black. None of that stuff. This is about the American people. They got to remember that. And the question they have to frame every single time they open their mouth is this person the best person that's going to help put food on your table, gas in your car, jobs out there, and keep you safe, both from problems at home and problems abroad. If they do that, Republicans will win. If they don't, who knows what happens?
Well, and you're right on. There's going to be a bump that happens. We're already seeing it now. It's something new. It's something, for a lot of folks, it becomes exciting. It's like, okay, who is she? But a lot of that is going to settle down, and it's going to settle in, because then what happens is you got, what we used to call them the Google monkeys. Remember that? They're right now just pulling up her record in San Francisco as district attorney. They're pulling up her record as the attorney general in California. And they're once again, and they've got a lot of this information, but they're going to comb through in fine detail what her record has been as the vice president. What happened when she finally went to the border? She was put in charge of the immigration problem, or finding a solution to the problem, or coming up with some solutions during the beginning of Joe Biden's administration. And, that she fumbled up. What have been her other initiatives? How has she actually gone out and helped the president with his agenda? Because his agenda, his record now becomes her record. And the other really surprising thing is, there were some good lines that she gave when she, it was 2 days after she was endorsed by Joe Biden. And, she said, hey, I was a former prosecutor running against a convicted felon. And, she threw a lot of good jabs over at President Trump. But the thing is, she's now opened up her record, and she's now said, hey, I was a prosecutor, and everyone's now starting to look at what her record was in California. Right. I know I've got a couple calls because, we've dealt with a lot of different programs here. I used to work with the Bail Agents Association, law enforcement. And so it's like, okay, what are some things you can provide us? Where are areas that we can start looking at? One of them in particular, California has this APPS program, the Armed Prohibited Persons System. And so they're going to start looking at that. They're going to start looking at Prop 47. While she didn't endorse Prop 47, while she didn't come up with the title of saying safe schools, safe communities, she did write the title and summary for it. And so there's a couple articles within the Los Angeles Times or Sacramento Bee that show what are things that she purposely omitted when she put together that title and summary. Key things on DNA testing for rape kits. And so there's going to be all this looking at California. And I think the difficulty for her is going to be, once all this, newness settles in, all the warts that California has will be hers. And they are going to, it's going to be a, do you really want to California, Michigan? Do you really want to California, Pennsylvania? Do you really want to California, Nevada, Arizona? And you pick any other battleground state, and they're going to really start highlighting. Look at our homeless, our crime. Things are expensive other places, and they're going to point to California's. But do you know how expensive they are in California? And right. If we continue to have this person in here, this is where we're going to go. Those are things
it's called the Californication of America.
Yeah, that's what look, Mike, I know you are now in Alabama. You are now you and Julie ended up getting a place over in Alabama, and tell the folks when you first arrived there or you started meeting people. Once they found out you were from California, what was that like?
It was, we welcome you here, but please leave your values back in California. And it's like, well, my values are my God, my country, and my family. So I think we're pretty okay. California does not have a great reputation. California has a great reputation in California. But let me tell you, I mean, I'm in California now. I got off the plane at LAX, drove out of the airport, and saw gas at 5 change. Went to lunch. It was 3 times more expensive here than it is back in Alabama. Alabama has a growing population. It has growing business. It has a growing tax base. And so Californians love to talk about how unique and special California is. And it used to be, but people like Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, and others have really, ruined the state. And I think that is the issue that she's going to have to face. In 2020, the Trump campaign never used her as a bludgeon that they should have used her. And when I say that, I mean from the terms of policy. And for those that don't know Prop 47, if you watch on TV what happens in California of people walking into stores and stealing stuff and never getting prosecuted, or maybe you see it in your own hometown if you're in New York or Chicago or someplace like that, all of that kind of free reign on crime and allowing people to do this stuff with no punishment, no consequence, started with what was passed here in California of Prop 47. And I'm sure that if people knew what the thing said, they probably would not have voted for it because they're not that stupid. And the fact of the matter is she did have a hand in writing that ballot initiative in terms of the title and the summary for it. Her record as Attorney General in California is going to be open game. Her record in the United States Senate and the things that she said. We're a country, listen to both sides. We're a country that needs to be united. After the assassination attempt on President Trump, we have to unite as a country and all this other stuff. I can't think of a more polarizing figure than Kamala Harris in the Democrat Party. Not even Obama, not even Michelle Obama, not even Joe Biden. I mean, anything that you disagree with her on, she paints it as something that just divides the country. And I just don't see. It's just funny to me. It's like the Democrats kept saying, we've got to have unity. We've got to have unity in this country, unity in this country. And then of all of the people that they have on their bench, including the president of the United States, they pick probably the most divisive person you can find. So, I mean, that's going to be another issue as well. All of the things that she has said about things and the way she has presented it, as someone. The one I still remember was when she served on the Senate Judiciary Committee. There was a judicial candidate for a federal court position in Nebraska. And, she railed against this guy because he belonged to this right-wing organization that was beating up women and keeping them in their place and all this other stuff. And, their draconian methods and everything like that. And it was because he belonged to the Knights of Columbus. That to me is anti-Catholic. I mean, she painted that as a draconian organization against women because it's the Knights of Columbus. They're pro-life. And so it wasn't a respect for the organization or their beliefs. It was demonizing them. And, that's personal to me because I'm a member of the Knights of Columbus. So that was very, very personal to me. But that's the way she is. And so that if you listen to what they've said over the course of the last 2.5 weeks, that is not supposedly the message they want. There is this honeymoon right now. Everybody's happy. Everybody's in love. But you're right. To me, what it's done is it's now become a race. The race shifts from someone who is strong against someone who is feeble and his best years are behind him in Joe Biden, against these two people now in the campaign on the Trump side needs to be very focused on her record, her issues. They shouldn't do my opinion, strictly my opinion. They don't listen, but my straight opinion, they shouldn't be doing commercials about her cackling or her things that she says that make Julia Louis-Dreyfus on Veep look like Einstein, because they're so bizarre. The only thing they should be showing is the message of Joe Biden saying he's putting Kamala Harris in charge of the border, and then show all of the statistics that have happened at the border since she became in charge of the border. Fentanyl deaths in the U.S., terrorists that have come into the country, jobs that have been lost, cities that have been crippled, all of that kind of stuff. Take Joe and what he did to her and hang it on her. And that's the way to run. To me, that's the way to run a campaign, on all of those kinds of things.
Well, and I think, and the other thing too is, and I know some of the reporters have started to ask, and I think once this honeymoon kind of dies out, is okay. You kept on saying, and there's plenty of news stories, her going on cameras like, look, I sit down with Joe, and he's the strongest ever. He is smart. He's all there. He's one of the smartest people in the rooms. He asks all these
tough questions, right?
Everything. So why were you complicit in not telling the American people, the truth?
Right.
Why did you hide this? And I think that question is going to be asked, because you're beginning to see that question being asked if he's not able health-wise. And his brother, I think his name is Frank Biden, came out and said, look, my brother's got health problems. Mm-hmm. And I hope that he's able to spend more time with us and spend time with family, but he's got health problems. And so with his brother going out, Frank Biden going out and saying this, well, he's not healthy enough to run for president. How is he healthy enough to be president?
Right.
And I think it's a legitimate question that should be asked, because there's still 6 more months. It's 6 to 6.5 more months of this presidency, because it ends when the new president gets inaugurated, which is in January 20th, 2025. And so she's going to have to answer that question. And you're right, there is a border situation. There is the Prop 47 that we have here in California, which oddly enough, this November, the people of California will get to vote on Prop 36, which is basically a redo, like to undo Prop 47 and lower the thresholds for theft. So, for example, right now, if you steal $950 and under $950, it is considered a misdemeanor. And so most cops aren't going to come out there to go and arrest you or do something, because it's a misdemeanor. And so a lot of agencies have basically just kind of turn their head to these particular types of theft. And so what it's allowed is for folks to say, okay, great, they're not going to come out, so I will just go out and steal. And so in addition to other items that are decriminalized. And so she's going to have to run on that one after the was it George Floyd, the no bail, the defund the police, mm-hmm. the investing and telling people to go drop money into kind of some of these activist groups that were out there trying to get people out of jail quicker.
She's contributed and encouraged people to contribute it to help these BLM people that were going around burning the city out of jail, pay their bail.
Right. And
I mean, is that what you all want? Do you want a leader of our country that turns around and says to everybody, hey, we're going to have a GoFundMe page on the federal government page or whatever to go get people out of jail after they just burned their own hometown?
Right. And so all those
that's
crimes.
That's what your choice.
Well, and all those crimes that got committed. And look, numbers are numbers. Recidivism rates, you're going to have a percentage of recidivism rates. And so they'll some of them ended up committing crimes. And so all that gets tagged back onto her. I mean, the big thing I'm seeing right now is her stance on energy, on domestic oil production, on fracking, on where do we stand as the United States in the world of energy, and do her policies that she has put forth as United States Senator and as President. How is that going to impact the prices that we pay here at gallon gas? And so you look at California, and Mike, you're right. We're paying about $1.50 here in California on average, more than any other state. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the price of gasoline, it's a price of electricity, it's a price of food, it's a price of everything else, because remember, gasoline or petroleum impacts everything.
Right.
If the price of gasoline is $1.50 more than those Amazon packages that are getting to your home, that's going to be a little bit more. That the farmers who have to go and grow our produce, then take it over to the markets. If the price of gasoline is more expensive, then everything else is more expensive along the line, and so we end up paying for it at the end. And so those are some of the things that will be stuck under her that she's going to have to go out and try to defend. And so, and you're right. It's the I liked how you phrase it. Is the people of California, we tend to believe that we're something special, while the other people around the United States says, "What the hell is going on in that particular state?
What's wrong with you people?"
Right. And the thing is, it'll boil down to some battleground states, which is going to be key.
And let's talk about that, because you just mentioned a key one: Michigan and Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris is more of a climate warrior than Joe Biden ever was. I mean, she really believes this stuff. She really is into the Green New Deal. She's really into all of these AOC things that the squad likes to do on energy. Joe Biden, did it because people told him to. She'll do it because she actually believes that this is going to change the climate. She really believes that that's the way to the country needs to go. So that's an issue right there to on the individual campaign level that needs to be an issue in those two states. And there are just a number of them. The crime one goes across the board, and it's just going to be fascinating to see how does she play in certain states, and how does she? The first big thing that she's going to have to do is pick a vice president. I mean, that's the first thing. I remember, and people have short memories, and sometimes my short-term memory is not that good. But I do remember in 2019 and 2020, during the beginning parts of the campaign, she became the darling. She was young, she was friendly, she was energetic, and all this other stuff. And people were talking about how great she was. There was this bubbling euphoria about her when she first started to run. And then it fell flat on its face, so that she never even made it to the Iowa primary. That was before she had a record people knew about. That was before she had a track record as vice president. So we'll see if she's able. The nice bump that she got over this past week of stepping into the role, closing the ranks behind her, making it look like now they will have a unified convention in Chicago. Does that translate into things going forward as she gets put under the microscope?
And she's going to get another bump at the convention. I mean, every party ends up getting a nice bump. She'll have another bump after the convention. Everyone will be saying nice things. They'll talk about what the future holds or what their plans are, and but it's going to come right back down to the record.
And my concern, as I said in the beginning, is there's nothing that we can do about that. But what we can do, the people that don't want to see her get elected, is to make sure that the things we discuss about her are focused on issues.
Right.
And the question of, is this what you want for yourself right now and your family in the future? Is this what you want for America in the future? And that's all legitimate and all fair game. And she has clearly shown that she's someone that when you focus on stuff like that, she comes back in a very personal and vitriolic way, name calling, victimizing, all of that kind of stuff. And, I just think that that's not going to win her any votes she doesn't already have. So
what's your okay.
I was going to say,
so the question on the VP.
That's what I was just going to say. I mean, to me, I go back to the playbook of all of this. Okay. The playbook of everything that is happening right now is the series Veep. Okay. So that's the playbook. So what happened in Veep when the Veep becomes president? That's what I'm asking myself. Forget 40 freaking years of political experience and campaigns around the country. Oh, screw that. We're now in Veep world, baby. So what did they do? Well, they picked a popular white senator, Tom James, in the book, and I mean in the series, to be her Veep. At one point, they were talking about picking someone who was almost like Kamala. Her name was Kimmy. She was half black, half Hawaiian. Her name was Kimmy, and her moniker or her standard catchphrase was "as a woman and a woman of color." So she's out. And if you ever watch the video, watch the series, you could see what that one was all about, which was absolutely hilarious. I think they pick a white United States senator. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think they pick
Well,
a white United States senator, and the one that comes to my mind is Mark Kelly from Arizona.
Yeah, I think that would help out with Arizona. That would help out with Nevada. That would help out with some of those states.
Some of the Midwest states.
Does Kelly also help out with the issue of immigration?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I saw a thing yesterday with Kelly in Mexico. Kelly was down in Mexico meeting with the new the president-elect of Mexico, talking about how they have to have a working relationship. He has been critical of the administration on border security. So, which ironically enough is what she was in charge of. But that's another story for another day. But again, I think from an optics standpoint, he's a tough guy, former astronaut. He does help considerably in Arizona. He's very popular in Arizona. I think he does help in Nevada. He does play well in other places. Again, I'm basing this strictly on the existing playbook that is overriding everything right now. This is like the Truman Show. Remember the Truman Show, where it's like everybody's in a show, but they don't know they're in a show? This is us. We are now in the Truman Show. Okay, America is in the Truman Show, and there's someone above us. I don't know who the hell it is that's running the script, and I'm convinced the script he has is from Veep. And so that's why I think they're going to pick a white United States senator that is very popular, easygoing guy, friendly, kind of calms waters, plays well in certain areas, that's the route I think she goes. That's my guess.
Well, I was reading today. There was a couple of people said one of the people that also shot up in her list has been Pete Buttigieg. Yeah, that's what's one of the other ones that kind of popped up in her selection. Young guy, articulate, has been out in the stump right now, just giving it to everyone, and so
giving it to Delta Airlines.
Yeah, I know.
He's beating the crap out of Delta, and he should, by the way.
Yeah. So
I mean that. Yeah. So I got no problems with him beating the crap out of Delta Airlines.
Well, and it's interesting because the Republican leader, had gone to his members, say, hey, look, let's leave the racial stuff down, leave this whole DEI thing out of the way. And yes, I agree with that. But I think it's important for people to realize is the vice president isn't necessarily a pick of who is the best qualified to be there. It is who is. I mean, it's a political calculation. It's who is the best qualified that can get me the additional votes or fill in that gap that I have. Right. And so it's an individual they pick to say, okay, am I hurting or do I need more votes or who is popular in this particular area that can help me go and connect or message into that particular area that's going to be received well? Because, we've got 50 different states and we've got many territories, and it's a big diverse place that we've got. And so one person candidate, can cover a good swath of the voters across the United States, but there are going to be some gaping holes there. And so the selection for Donald Trump was, can I help fill in a gap? Which for him, it looked as though, obviously with J.D. Vance, it was the Rust Belt states, the Appalachian states there. Mm-hmm. Fits it, helps fill in that role pretty well. For her, they're gonna look at her map, and whoever they decide to choose is, okay, is my road to the White House go through Arizona, Nevada, and some of these states there, or does it going to go into through the Appalachian states? And so, it really is a calculation of numbers. I think for most people, we got to realize is we don't select a president by the popular vote. We have an electoral college. And so every single state is given a certain number of delegates and electoral votes, sorry. And so you've got to come up with that number. And there's a magic number you got to come up with, which it's 270. And so how do you get to that 270 is how you place these things along into the calculation of who you choose as the vice president.
Well, all of that is absolutely right. And I will just go back to what I said before. According to the Veep script, it's Mark Kelly from Arizona. He's the closest thing to Tom James from the series. But I'm sticking with it. He plays well in all places. Kind of calms the waters a little bit. Popular guy, former astronaut. I mean, yeah, to me, as I looked at all of the people that were met, Buttigieg, would be a good choice for her. But as I looked at all of the things, and again, taking it and looking at the script, who's Tom James? Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly's going to be the VP.
Well, Mike, we'll see if that comes true or not. Let's leave it here, Mike, and then catch up a little bit later on some other things, and we'll see how this thing.
A whole bunch of other things to talk. See, there's the Secret Service lady that's now out of a job. Thank God. That was like one of the worst brutal hearings I've ever heard, and thank God she quit. There's what you had mentioned earlier. We thought we should talk about, which is the money part of all of this.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of other different things. So we'll do another episode really soon, and stay tuned, or watch Veep, and then you'll know what's happening like we do.
All right, Mike.